Hi, I'm David Kachel. This is a video about printing a Photogravure polymer plate. This is work that I do in my gallery, so that's why you're seeing the entryway to my gallery. I thought I might as well show you the gallery as part of the video. This is the front room. It's half gallery, half workspace. This is in downtown Bisbee, Arizona. Any similarity between me and a real videographer is strictly coincidental. That's my work table there on the left, the etching press, and over here on the right is where the inking gets done. I ink plates on a light box. That ugly mass there is the ink I've been using today. This is the plate I printed a short while ago, and I'm getting ready to print here again in a few minutes. Let's go around to the rest of the gallery and finish up there. If you're curious about any of these prints, you can see most of them on my website, davidkachel.com. There's my Birkin James 8x10 camera, and yes, I do still use it. Keep a tray of water for dampening paper. This is plain water with a couple of drops of formaldehyde in it and half a cap of tween 20 to help the paper get moist a bit faster. Ink and solvent storage, all very exciting. And paper, after it's been dampened, gets blotted and torn down to size right here. So let's move on to inking and printing a plate. Alright, let's start with some technical details. The ink I'm using today is a mixture of two sepia inks, one from Gamblin ink and the other one from Graphic Chemical. Graphic Chemical sepia is much less brown than Gamblin's, and I'm mixing the two, about 3 parts Gamblin to 1 part Graphic Chemical, and getting a brown I find very appealing. I also add a little bit of triple O plate oil. I'll sometimes add number 2 plate oil, which is in the background there, to get the consistency that I'm after. Most people who print photogravures do not ink their plates on a light box. I do. I find it's very helpful, and since the plates I'm using are transparent, why not? I print on a light box. Here's the light box. You're going to get some flashing and some yellow lines because it's got fluorescent lights in it, and video does not like fluorescent lighting. I cover the light box with an 18 by 24 inch piece of newsprint, and the light box itself is covered with a $10 frame from the dollar store. They are very poor frames, but they make great covers for light boxes you don't want to cover in ink and get all scratched up. And then this is the plate we're going to be printing today. This is one of my images shot in Peru during the summer of 1980. The dark areas you're seeing are the remnants of the ink from the print made earlier. I'm going to take a minute to set this camera up on a tripod so I can ink the plate and run the video at the same time. Okay, I hope this is going to work. This fluorescent light box may cause us some troubles. I spread ink on a plate with a tool used in painting cars. This is the traditional one. It's called Bondo scrapers, And this is used to fill in empty spaces. Anyway, this is what you can get easily at any auto supply store. I found something I like better at a local auto parts store, but unfortunately I can't tell you what brand it is because they get them in bulk and they won't tell me what brand it is. This is a simple white piece of plastic. It's just a little bit better suited, I find, than the more readily available scrapers. I use the flat side, not the curved side, to ink. I found the curved side to be problematic. I put a little bit of ink on the flat side of the scraper. You can't see that in the video, but you saw the ink before. And then run it down the plate. A little more ink. Let's try this again. There we go. Firmly but gently. Now you won't be able to see this in the video, but there are little tiny holes in the inked area. Actually not in this particular run, but usually you'll see little tiny white holes. And that's just places where the ink has not gotten into the plate yet. And you solve that problem by just turning the plate 90 degrees and running the ink across and removing the excess at the same time. What you can't see me doing off camera is just wiping off the excess ink back onto the puddle of ink that's on the glass where the ink is located. Now you can use a paper towel for this. I've started using little red shop rags lately. Started doing it thinking I was going to cure a problem with dust. Made no difference, so the shop rags are not really essential. And since I'm making a video, of course, I'm going to start screwing up left and right. One of the things I just did was wipe ink all over the back of the plate because I got sloppy and careless. That's easily remedied. Now I'm using the red rag to wipe the ink off the non-image borders of the plate. I use a plate that does not have image all the way out to the edges because I don't like the chipping that tends to occur with polymer plates. And putting an edge on an image is certainly within the photogravure tradition, so I have no problem with it. And if you do, then you'll just have to find a solution to the chipping problem. These are real inks, not the easy wash inks that are being promoted of late. I used those for better than 3 years and realized in the last few months that they are absolute junk and you cannot get a decent photogravure print using those water-soluble, washable inks. You have to use the real thing. The difference is enormous. Okay, the edges have been washed or wiped off. I've gotten the ink off the back of the plate where I accidentally spread some out. Now comes time to wipe the plate. This is real tarlatan. It comes pretty stiff. A lot of books advise you to handle it roughly a little bit, get some of the stiffness out of it, or run it over the edge of a table. I do that to only a very small degree. I've found that it works quite well, just about as it comes from the manufacturer. Wiping is very, very gentle. I'm barely touching this plate as I run this tarlatan over it. Of course, you can't tell in the video whether I'm being rough or gentle, but that's the approach I advise you to take. Be patient. If you get rough, you simply pull ink out of the dark areas of the plate, which is exactly where you don't want to take ink from. Rotate the plate as you're wiping. you see the ink slowly start to come off from the areas where it is most heavily in excess. Okay, it's most heavily in excess in a line here and here, and that's where it's going to come off first, for the most part. Okay, I'm going to switch to a slightly less used area. You'll notice that I have this tarlatan folded flat and not rounded. This is something I read on the internet a few months ago. I thought the guy's explanation was a reasonable suggestion, so I tried it and it does work. I may not stick with it forever, who knows. I may go back to using a ball, but I like this, the way this has worked out for me so far. Okay. Most of the excess is just about gone, so I'm going to switch again to an even less used area. There is no real formula for this. Every book you read will tell you something different. You have to do it in a way that satisfies what you want to get accomplished. Okay, even less used side. And we're getting close to being done with the tarlatan. Now here's something I found an explanation for in only one, if I recall correctly, out of 9 books I have on printmaking. And that is, you finish the plate wiping with your hand if you want plate tone. That is, you want a light coating of ink in the lightest parts of the image. That's something that's for printmaking that is not photogravure. If you're making a photogravure, you don't want plate tone, at least not very much. You want the whites to be white. So you use a piece of newsprint. This is the same newsprint I'm using on the light table, just cut up into 4 pieces of sheet. Again, this is very light. If you get the slightest bit aggressive, you're going to pull ink exactly out of the areas from which you do not want to pull it. There's the ink accumulating on the paper. Switch to a clean side. Continue. Okay. Switch again to a clean side. And as you get ink off the plate, it doesn't need to be there for the print, the plate will become smoother and smoother, less and less resistant to the movement of the paper. But you continue to keep it very light. You are not scrubbing, you are skimming. The problem with the newer wonder inks that they're trying to sell us is that wiping them pulls the ink right out of the shadows, most of it. That's why you'll get much more ink on your tarlatan using those inks than you will using traditional intaglio inks. Okay, I fold the paper over, gives me 4 fresh sides, and I use those too. Pretty sure you're not going to be able to see a whole lot of the image being cleaned up here because of the fluorescent light. But I hope you're getting the general idea. Okay, that is the newsprint pretty much done, but we're not done wiping yet. This is another hint I got off the internet some months back. This is tracing paper. Very lightly over the surface. If you're not ready for the tracing paper yet, it will stick to your plate. And even if you are ready, it will start to get sticky as you wipe. You change surfaces then to continue. As soon as you notice it getting sticky, switch to a clean side. I've never found it necessary to be able to use tracing paper more than that. The next step is cleaning the edges of the plate. That's the hardest and most tedious part of the process. I use baby wipes from Walmart. These are unscented, or fragrance-free is the phrase they use. These seem to be about the best. They don't leave much, if any, lint or junk behind. Sometimes they'll be a little too damp. You'll have to wring them out. The first thing I do is get the ink off my hands. And sometimes there'll be too much ink on the baby wipe to deal with the plate, so I'll just have to throw this one out and get a fresh one. Other times I can use the one baby wipe for everything. The closer you get to the bottom of the box, the more moisture there is in the baby wipe. Before you use it on the plate, just ball it up and wring it out. Then fold it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Now the reason for this is you're going to have to count sides unless you can keep track of what you're doing with interruptions better than I can. Use a corner, wipe down from one side of the plate just to get yourself into position. You got to find your own way to do this really. And then run that baby wipe with moderate pressure up the side of that plate, with the tip just sticking out over the image. It won't actually touch the image, but you want it far enough into the edge that it gets the entire side right up to the edge of the image. See the ink on it? We're not done yet. Got to keep going back and forth on this. That's that side. And we do the next side with a clean side. It occurs to me the camera angle may not be quite right to see this, so I'm going to change it for this side, see if it's a little easier to see what's going on. I've used up those 2 sides, so I'm going to fold it over, run it down along this edge just a little bit, and then across. Run it back and forth several times. Don't get it too close to the edge of the image now. And the last side, there. Now there's still plenty of ink on that plate that can be on the edges of that plate that can be transferred to the paper, even though you can't see it. If you were here with me, you wouldn't be able to see any ink on those edges, but it's there. First thing we need to do is I folded the baby wipe over to fresh sides, and I'm cleaning the outside edges one at a time. As long as there's ink, you need to keep cleaning. Use one side of the baby wipe for each edge so you can be sure that you've got all 4 edges. Now it may, from where you are, it may look like I'm wiping into the image. I'm not. And then this is the last side. And that's good. I'm really surprised I haven't already screwed this up since I'm taping it. Now, one very important step remains to be done because there is still ink on the edge of this plate. Right here, where the polymer blends outward, gets thinner, at that edge right there, not the plate edge, but the polymer edge, there is ink there. You cannot see it, but you will shortly. Again, folding over the baby wipe to get clean sides. And you need to go to the hardware store and buy some of this. This is chalk, used by carpenters for marking lines on walls and floors and whatever. Comes in blue and white. You want to get the white stuff. And I've got a little pile of chalk on the table off the camera view here, but all I do is just dip my finger in the chalk. You can see it there, and run my finger along this edge fairly firmly. And you probably can't see it, but there's chalk that fell off the edge of the plate here that's not white anymore. It's brown. That's because the chalk picked up a bunch of ink from that edge. Turn the paper and do the other three edges. Now, some of the chalk will fall off your finger onto the plate image. Don't try to remove it. Don't touch it. Just leave it alone. It's going to come off in another couple of minutes. This chalk treatment works 100% of the time. So it solves a huge problem. Wiping the outside edges of the plate works 99% of the time. The other 1% is when I get lazy and forget to do a side. Okay, now the plate is ready for printing. We're going to move over to the press and take care of that. Okay, I did manage to screw up a little bit. That's a piece of Stonehenge paper, printmaking paper, in the natural color they provide, that I did not put into soak before I inked the plate. I usually do. I want it to have about 20 to 30 minutes to soak, but it's just about ready now. In the meantime, the plate is sitting on the press, and I'm going to put this camera on a tripod and show you what comes next. Alright, you can see the grid on the paper underneath the plexiglass on the press. I've started aligning plate and paper a little bit differently lately and stopped using the grid. I may go back. We'll get to that more in a little bit. The plate has chalk on it from cleaning the edges. I just use canned air to blow off the chalk and any dust that may have accumulated on the plate while waiting for me to get around to print it. The next thing to do is to prepare the paper. Alright, this is the same newsprint that I've been using all along. This is a stack of maybe 20 sheets of newsprint. I cut this paper down from the standard 22 by 30 inch pieces. These are 10 by 12 inch pieces. That leaves only one decal edge, which is unsightly. Put the printing paper between the newsprint, rub it down. No two people do this the same way, so you're probably going to find your own way to do it. Second time. time. Now I am handling this paper with inky fingers, and I am in fact getting ink on the paper. And I'm going to solve that because I don't use the full sheet for printing. And I like decal edges, and I don't like having just one of them. Well, if the paper's wet like this, you can turn the other edges into decal edges very easily just by tearing it. I'm going to turn this into a 10.5 inch by 8 inch piece of paper and create 4 decal edges at the same time, holding this bar down. And sometimes you get a little bit of dust, but you can brush that right off. The edges will look different from the decal edge when you do this, but not after you pull it out of the press. They should be indistinguishable. Okay, I've got an 8 by 10.5 inch piece of paper now properly dampened. No junk or grunge on it. Now we're going to move the camera again as I show you the remainder of the process. Alright, now here's what I've been doing differently. Instead of using the guidelines underneath the plexiglass, I've just putting the paper face up, taking the plate, turning it over, and positioning it by hand. And it slipped, and that happens. Surprisingly, you will not get streaked ink on the print. At least I haven't yet. I use a little painter's spatula just for convenience. Lift that up, get a grip on paper and plate, just turn the whole thing over, lay it down, I'm ready to go. Pull the blankets down and run the print. This is the fun part. Anyone watching this is rich and thinks that I should be given a motorized press, please feel free to send me one. That noisemaker is Wendy, by the way, the gallery dog. She does a very good job of it, too. Okay, we're ready to pull the camera again. All right. Lift the blankets, roll them back. Lift the print off the plate, and there we have a complete and gorgeous print with 1 or 2 spots on it that I'll have to fix later. And that's it.